Most people live their lives busy, so busy they can barely catch their breath. But here's the catch. Being busy doesn't mean you're going anywhere. Motion isn't progress. And just because someone is constantly doing something doesn't mean they're doing the right thing. Most people are spending their lives polishing the doorknob while the roof is leaking. They're managing the small details while the big picture is falling apart. They wake up, rush through the day, do 100 little tasks, and fall into bed exhausted. But if you ask them what they truly accomplished, what moved the needle, what made an impact, what brought them closer to their dreams, they struggle to answer. Why? Because they major in minor things. They treat the trivial like it's vital. They give time and energy to things that barely matter, and neglect the few things that could change their life forever. They'll spend hours comparing phones before they buy one, but won't spend 10 minutes a day reading a book on money, mindset, or character. They'll argue endlessly over which streaming service is best, yet they won't take time to sit down and write out clear goals for their life. They'll keep up with every celebrity's drama, but don't know how to manage their own daily habits. That's what it looks like to major in minor things. It's spending hours in gossip and minutes in growth. It's knowing the latest trend, but not your own net worth. It's scheduling your social calendar before you schedule your priorities, and you know what's dangerous about it. It feels like you're doing something. It feels like work. It feels like activity. But activity isn't accomplishment. Busy doesn't mean productive, and hustle without direction is just movement in a circle. People think they're making progress, but they're really just getting better at going nowhere. They're refining the unimportant. You ask them what they've been up to, and they'll say, "Oh, I've been grinding." Grinding on what? On things that won't matter a year from now, 5 years from now. Most people spend their lives improving their comfort, not their character. They invest in clothes more than courses. They take better care of their phone battery than their energy. They know more about their favorite actor than they do about their own behavior patterns. And it's not that they don't have time. Everyone gets 24 hours. The question is, how are you spending yours? Some will spend an hour scrolling, another on gossip, another on Netflix, and maybe, just maybe, 5 minutes wondering why their life hasn't changed. The truth is, they're making daily investments, just in the wrong account. They're depositing their time, attention, and focus into areas that never give a return. Minor things, trivial pursuits, empty distractions. Now, here's the danger. Life doesn't penalize you immediately. You can neglect the major and focus on the minor for weeks, months, even years, and nothing seems to go wrong. The lights stay on, your friends still laugh at your jokes, and your comfort zone feels just fine. But eventually, the debt comes due. You wake up one day and realize you've climbed a ladder that was leaning against the wrong wall. You realize you got really good at things that don't matter, and terrible at things that do. And by then, it feels like it's too late to turn around. Most people get caught in that trap because major things are rarely urgent. Your health won't collapse overnight. Your dreams won't leave tomorrow. Your potential won't shout for attention. The major things are silent. They don't demand, they wait. Meanwhile, the minor things scream, notifications. Opinions, drama, distractions, they all compete for your focus. And unless you're intentional, unless you decide to ignore the noise, you'll end up serving the minor while the major is starving. What the few understand, what the successful practice, is the ability to distinguish between movement and momentum. between being busy and being strategic. They understand that an hour spent on vision is worth more than 10 on vanity. That 10 minutes of stillness can outpace 10 hours of panic. That reading one book with intention can be more powerful than watching 100 videos without direction. They understand leverage. That's the word, leverage, doing the few things that move the many things. Making decisions today that echo into tomorrow, but for most people, the small urgent wins. The pressure of now beats the value of next. So they keep running on a treadmill, sweating and straining, but staying in the same place. They call it work. They call it grinding, but it's just another day of pouring energy into a bucket with no bottom. Major in the minor long enough, and you'll wonder why life feels so heavy and progress so slow. One of the great tragedies of life is the number of people who never begin. They have dreams, they have visions, they even have talent. But they keep their greatness locked up behind a phrase that has destroyed more destinies than failure ever did. I'll start when the time is right. It sounds reasonable. It sounds patient. It even sounds wise, but it's a lie, a dangerous, quiet lie, because the right time almost never comes. The conditions are almost never perfect, and the world rarely waits for anyone to catch up. Most people are waiting for everything to line up. They're waiting for more money, more motivation, more support, more clarity, more certainty. They want to feel 100% ready before they take the first step. They're waiting for the stars to align. But here's the truth. The stars don't align until you start walking. It's the movement that creates the momentum. It's the action that brings the clarity, and it's the step that brings the support. Life rewards action, not hesitation. You don't need perfect conditions to plant a seed. All you need is a decision. Because the person who plants something small in a storm will grow more than the person who keeps their seeds in a jar, waiting for sunshine. And that's the problem with most people. They're more in love with potential than with process. They love the idea of becoming successful, but they don't want to start when it's hard. They don't want to move while it's messy. They don't want to build while uncertain, but all builders begin in chaos. Every structure that stands today was once surrounded by confusion and dust. The difference is someone picked up a tool anyway. The greatest progress is made in imperfect conditions. That's the irony. The business idea that works was usually born in stress. The habit that sticks was usually started when things were inconvenient. The journey that transforms was almost always launched when comfort wasn't present. The most powerful routines were created in seasons of uncertainty. But most people don't realize that because they're too busy waiting for ideal. They think one more week of rest will help, one more month of thinking, one more year of planning. What they don't see is that delay becomes decay. That postponement becomes paralysis. They think they're being smart by waiting, but what they're really doing is building fear. Every time you delay action, you strengthen doubt. Every time you hesitate, you hand your confidence over to uncertainty. When you begin without the full picture, something amazing happens. The picture becomes clearer with every step. Action brings perspective. One step leads to the next. But if you never move, you never grow. You don't find your strength by studying it. You find it by testing it. And testing happens through action, not imagination. Reading a book on swimming isn't the same as jumping in the pool. At some point, you've got to leave the edge and trust that progress meets you halfway. You don't need to see the whole staircase. Just the first step is enough. People love to say someday. But someday isn't a day on the calendar. There's no someday between Monday and Sunday. Someday is where dreams go to die, because it gives you the illusion of intent without any action. It feels good to say, I'll do it when things settle down, but life rarely settles. Life isn't a quiet lake. It's a moving river. And if you keep waiting for it to calm down before you dive in, you'll watch it pass you by. The few who succeed, the 2%, they understand this. They act in the rain. They build in the storm. They take risks when others retreat. And that's why they rise. Not because life handed them the perfect moment, but because they moved anyway. You can spend years trying to get ready, or you can get started and let readiness catch up. That's how growth works. You show up first. You act first. You commit first, then the doors open, then the resources come, then the path appears. Most people want the path to be lit before they take a single step. But the light only comes when you walk forward. Faith is not waiting in the dark. It's stepping into it. And when you move forward with intention, life notices. It rewards the one who dares. It doesn't promise ease, but it promises elevation. Not because you waited, but because you walked. There's a principle that separates the average from the extraordinary, and that principle is discipline. It's the secret sauce, the quiet strength, the invisible force that drives every success story you've ever admired. Not talent, not luck, not connections, discipline. The problem is, most people don't like how it feels. They want the outcome without the effort. They want the reward without the routine. They are inspired by the finish line but allergic to the footsteps it takes to get there. Discipline isn't exciting at first. In fact, it's uncomfortable. It asks you to show up when you'd rather sleep in. It tells you to say no when everyone else is saying yes. It requires that you choose growth over gratification, consistency over chaos, progress over pleasure. That's a tall order in a world that is constantly whispering in your ear, take it easy, just this once. But success is never the result of taking it easy. It's the result of doing what's necessary long after the mood to do it has passed. Most people wait for motivation. They say, when I feel like it, I'll do it. But if you only act when you feel like it, you'll never get anywhere that matters. Feelings are fleeting. They change with the weather, with your mood, with how much sleep you got last night. Discipline doesn't care about your feelings. Discipline is built on commitment. It shows up whether you're excited or exhausted, whether it's convenient or not. Because discipline isn't about feeling. It's about deciding. You don't brush your teeth because you're inspired. You do it because it's necessary. You don't go to work because it's always fun. You do it because responsibility demands it. The same principle applies to your goals, your growth, your habits. When you live by discipline, your life starts to shift. You begin to see results, not because of giant leaps, but because of steady steps. The difference between the 2% and the 98% isn't always intelligence or opportunity. It's the willingness to do the same essential things every day, even when no one's watching. Discipline compounds. At first, it's small. 5 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of exercise, waking up an hour earlier. Skipping that sugary drink. And maybe on day 1, it looks like nothing's changing, but give it 30 days. 60, 90, give it a year. Suddenly, the small things aren't so small anymore. They've become your edge. They've become your structure. They've become the reason people ask, how do you stay so focused? It's not magic. It's not mystery. It's not a motivational secret. It's just discipline daily, practiced, repeated. The challenge is that most people give up before they even start to see the change. They try a routine for a week, then quit when it gets boring. They commit to a habit, then abandon it the first time it gets hard. And every time they quit, they reinforce a story that says, "I can't do this," not realizing that every act of discipline is also an act of identity. You're not just training your habits, you're training your self-image. Every time you show up, even in discomfort, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. And over time, those votes become your reality. If you want to build confidence, build discipline. Nothing makes you more confident than keeping the promises you make to yourself. You start to trust yourself. You start to walk taller, speak clearer, think sharper, because you know you've earned the right to. You've done the hard things. You've kept going when others quit. That kind of inner trust can't be bought, faked, or borrowed. It has to be built, and the currency is consistency. There's a certain pride that comes from discipline. Not arrogance pride, the kind that comes from knowing you paid full price for your progress. You didn't cheat, you didn't coast, you didn't cut corners. You showed up, you followed through, and in a world full of shortcuts that makes you rare, most people aren't disciplined because they think they have time. They think they can get serious later, but later turns into never, and every time you delay discipline, you strengthen distraction. You feed the part of you that chooses ease, and the more you feed it, the harder it becomes to break. But here's the beauty of discipline, it's always available. You don't need permission, you don't need better conditions. You don't need anyone to hand it to you. You just need to decide. Decide that you've had enough of drifting, enough of excuses, enough of showing up only when it's convenient. Discipline is the muscle that moves your life forward, and like any muscle, it grows with use. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, what was once hard becomes normal. What was once a struggle becomes a standard, and the life you once admired in others becomes your own. You can have the best strategy in the world, the clearest goals, the strongest work ethic, but if your self-image is weak, you'll always find a way to lose. That's the unseen battle most people never win. It's not the world that stops them. It's not the competition. It's not even their lack of resources. It's the story they tell themselves when no one's around. It's the quiet voice that says, "You're not good enough, you're not ready, you're not the kind of person who wins," and until that voice changes, nothing else really does. People think success starts with action, but it starts with identity. How you see yourself determines how you show up. If you see yourself as broke, even when you get money, you'll find a way to lose it. If you see yourself as lazy, even when you get motivated, you'll find a way to self-sabotage. If you see yourself as undeserving, even when opportunity knocks, you won't open the door, because we don't act according to our goals. We act according to our identity. And that's why so many people never break through. They're trying to create a new life with the same old mindset, trying to upgrade their results without upgrading the person who's producing them. The 98% never take time to work on who they believe they are. They read books, they go to seminars, they set goals, and still feel stuck. Because while their goals changed, their self-concept didn't. They're dragging the same insecurities into a new year, carrying the same doubts into new environments, hoping that circumstances will give them the confidence they never built internally. But confidence doesn't come from outside. It's an inside job. It comes from proving to yourself over time that you're becoming the kind of person who can handle the life you're asking for. That shift begins with awareness. Most people have never stopped to ask, how do I see myself? It's a simple question with enormous consequences. If deep down you believe you're average, you'll keep doing average things. You might try to rise for a season, but eventually you'll retreat back to what feels familiar. That's the power of identity. It pulls you like gravity. You can jump, you can leap, you can stretch. But if your identity is low, you'll come back down every time. You'll find a way to sabotage progress because progress feels foreign. Success will make you uncomfortable. You'll feel like an imposter in your own potential. You can't outperform your self-image. You can't permanently rise above who you think you are. If your inner blueprint says, I'm always behind, you'll live like it. If your inner story says, I'm not disciplined, you'll keep quitting. If your internal dialogue says, I'm not worthy, then no amount of achievement will satisfy you. It'll just make you nervous, waiting for it all to collapse. That's why personal growth isn't just about doing more. It's about becoming more, rewriting the internal script so your actions aren't fighting against your beliefs, but flowing from them. The few who succeed, truly succeed, understand this. They don't just work on their business, their body, or their bank account. They work on their beliefs, they study their habits of thought, they pay attention to their self-talk. They understand that your identity is like a thermostat. It sets the temperature of your life. You can open the windows, bring in new furniture, light a candle. But if the thermostat is set at 60 degrees, the room will always come back to 60. You might get a temporary burst of success, a lucky break, a big win. But if your inner setting is low, the outer results will adjust to match it. That's why the work isn't just in the doing, it's in the becoming. You become the kind of person who wakes up early, not just someone who sets an alarm. You become the kind of person who finishes what they start, not just someone who makes to-do lists. You become the kind of person who believes they are worthy of wealth, not just someone who saves money. When you change your identity, your actions become natural. You don't have to force discipline. You flow in it. You don't have to push for confidence, you carry it. You don't have to chase success. It begins to meet you where you are because you've become a person it recognizes. Most people don't see how much their reflection shapes their reality. They don't see how every time they speak poorly about themselves, they reinforce the chains that keep them bound. They don't understand that identity is built through repetition. Not just what you do, but what you say, what you believe, what you tolerate. And over time, those repeated patterns become your personality, your lifestyle, your destiny. So the question isn't just what do I want, but who am I becoming? Because success doesn't just respond to effort, it responds to identity. One of the greatest shifts in life happens the day you stop pointing fingers and start pointing thumbs. That's the moment growth begins. That's when progress becomes possible. Because as long as someone else is to blame for where you are, you've given away your power. And here's the truth most people avoid. The 98% stay stuck because they refuse to take full responsibility for their lives. It's always someone else's fault, their parents, their boss, the economy, the school system, the weather, the traffic, the government, the neighbor's dog. They build a life around reasons, and they defend those reasons as if they were facts. Reclaim the plot, no matter how clever, never lead to success. Blame might give temporary relief, but it comes at a long-term cost, because every time you blame, you reinforce helplessness. You teach your mind that you're not in control, that you're a victim of circumstance. And the more you see yourself that way, the less effort you make to change. You start believing the lie that your future depends on someone else changing first. But real change begins when you say, no matter what happened before, from here forward, it's on me. Responsibility doesn't mean everything is your fault. It means you're willing to respond to what is. It means you stop waiting for a better hand and learn how to play the one you were dealt. It means you stop looking for fairness and start looking for leverage. Most people wait for circumstances to improve before they get serious, but the ones who succeed, the rare few, they decide to improve despite the circumstances. They stop complaining about the wind and start adjusting their sails. They stop begging for easier lives and start becoming stronger individuals. You can hear it in people's language. You ask someone how things are going and they say, well, I would have done better, but you know, my boss doesn't support me. Or I could have started that project, but my friend never showed up. Or I wanted to get in shape, but my schedule is just too tight. Always something, always someone, always somewhere outside of themselves. And the problem with that is simple. If someone else is the problem, then someone else must also be the solution. And if you believe that, you'll spend your life waiting. Responsibility is the gateway to freedom. When you accept it fully, something powerful happens. You gain control. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop arguing for your limitations. You stop hiding behind circumstances and start shaping them. It's not easy. In fact, it can be painful, because taking responsibility means owning the times you messed up. It means looking in the mirror and admitting that you didn't do what you could have done. It means seeing the part you played in your own delays. But that's where your strength lies, in honesty. You can't fix what you won't face. You can't heal what you deny. And the truth might sting, but it also sets you free. Most people spend more time justifying their stagnation than creating their transformation. They protect their story of why it's hard, why it didn't work, why they're still in the same place. But while they're defending that story, someone else with the same limitations is rewriting theirs. Same background, different decision, same challenges, different perspective. The difference isn't in luck or opportunity, it's in ownership. One person says, look what they did to me. Another says, watch what I do next. Responsibility transforms you from a passive observer to an active creator. Life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. Your setbacks become lessons. Your pain becomes fuel. Your past becomes preparation. You stop asking, why me, and start asking, what now? You stop focusing on who hurt you and start focusing on who you're becoming. And slowly, decision by decision, you start building a life that's not a reaction, but a reflection of your choices. The 98% never reach that place because responsibility requires maturity. It requires that you outgrow the need to blame. It requires that you trade comfort for courage, that you stop pointing to the past and start committing to the future. It asks you to wake up every day and say, whatever happens today, I will find a way to learn, to grow, to improve. And that's not just a mindset, it's a decision. A daily decision, one that doesn't guarantee perfection, but guarantees progress. There's a quiet strength in those who take responsibility. You can see it in how they walk, how they speak, how they respond to setbacks. They don't crumble under pressure. They don't collapse when plans fall apart, because they know they are the author of their own story. And when you're the author, you don't wait for a better plot. You write one. You take the pen out of other people's hands and say, "I've got it from here." And the moment you do, everything begins to change, not because the world got easier, but because you got stronger. Now you know why 98% never make it. It's not because they aren't capable. It's not because opportunity didn't knock. It's because they made subtle decisions day after day that pulled them off course. They majored in minor things. They waited for perfect conditions. They never built the muscle of discipline. They ignored their identity. And worst of all, they handed away their responsibility. But here's the good news. None of that has to be your story. You don't need to be part of the 98%. You can join the few, the 2% who choose growth over comfort, action over excuses, discipline over feelings. The ones who stop waiting and start building. The ones who take full ownership of their future. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in daily decisions, small choices with big consequences. You can start today, not when it's perfect, not when it's easy. Today, show up, take the step, build the habit, rewrite the identity, accept full responsibility. Because when you do, you'll find something extraordinary on the other side. Not just success, but strength. Not just results, but respect. And not just wealth, but wisdom. The 98% wait for change. The 2% become the change. You get to choose which one you'll be.